Several months ago, I posted a video about the state of the Catholic Church in China, and I talked about Cardinal Joseph Zen, how he was speaking out about the horrible agreement between the Vatican and the Chinese government, in which the Vatican allowed the Chinese government to appoint bishops in the Chinese Catholic Church, as long as the Vatican approved them. And Cardinal Zen was understandably upset for the underground Chinese Catholics who were loyal to the Vatican. They did not want to go through Chinese government approval of their religion because your religion should supersede your political beliefs. Recently, the Communist Chinese government wanted religious leaders to sign a registration document with the Chinese government. In this document, the leaders would commit to the authority of the Chinese government. So the Chinese government, until recently, had a one-child policy, which means that each family could only have one child, and if they went over that limit, if the woman was pregnant, they would have forced abortions. Now they changed it to a two-child limit because they realized the demographics were so awfully skewed towards men. There were so many more men than women because people wanted to pass on the family name. In terms of the human rights violations and the forced abortions of the Chinese government, the Catholic Church in China cannot morally comply with Chinese law. So it immediately puts them at odds. So this underground church was basically affirming that and saying, like, we don't support the Chinese government. And of course the Chinese government, being a totalitarian system, hates that. They need their authority. Like, they need to enforce their authority in order for it to be carried out. I guess the Vatican has recently realized how catastrophic their agreement with China is because they issued a document called Pastoral Guidelines of the Holy See concerning the civil registration of clergy in China. Now notice, it's not regulations, requirements, or instructions, it's guidelines. So you can tell where this is going. There are a lot of words to basically say, oh, well, we're concerned about this document that the Chinese government wants the religious leaders to sign. So just follow your conscience and see if it will allow you to sign the document, which is actually kind of ridiculous coming from the Vatican. They shouldn't have even done the deal in the first place. There's a few names that I want to bring up here. Cardinal McCarrick, he had a large part in negotiating this agreement. And then also Secretary of State Cardinal Pietro Parolin and Cardinal Peter Turkson of Africa. Remember those two names because those are both people who could possibly become the next pope, and they had a hand in negotiating this awful Chinese deal. For Cardinal Turkson especially, a lot of people say we need an African as the next pope, and if you want an African, that's who you're going to get, and he was responsible partially for negotiating this awful Chinese deal. This is an unprecedented step for the Vatican to agree to a deal with a communist government. Communism is basically state worship, the worship of the government. So they can't have their authority undermined because many of these religions actually have ideas in opposition to communism. So the Catholic Church isn't the only religious group that is being oppressed in China. The Chinese government has been hostile to Protestants in China as well, and they throw Muslims in concentration camps, and they're also hostile to Buddhists. I'm going to post an article down below about how the Chinese government burns Bibles. They also vandalize churches, they burn crosses. It's a really big problem. So if these churches don't sign the agreement, the loyalty pledge to the Chinese government, then this will happen to their church. It's going to get destroyed by the Chinese government. But then if they do pledge loyalty to the Chinese government, then it will sell out to their religion. So they're in a no-win situation, and the Vatican brought it upon them. So I wanted to end with a discussion of Bishop James Su Zhimin. He has been detained since 1996 for conducting a religious procession that was unregistered with the government. And even after the Vatican-Chinese deal, he has not been released from prison. This is on the U.S. government's Human Rights Commission website, and it's just another reminder of how the Chinese government operates. In closing, I just want to say, Cardinal Zen, he has a good blog. I have it linked in my previous video. Take a look, follow him on Twitter, follow him on Facebook. He provides a lot of helpful updates on the situation of the Catholic Church in China. The situation of the Catholic Church in China is very unfortunate, but the best thing we can do is be aware and spread the news.